just talk a little bit about yesterday, because today is the last day of the DNC. We had another protest yesterday over at Union Park, pretty large protest, not as large as we had necessarily anticipated, but yesterday's protest ended with no arrests, no one injured, no officers injured, and it shows that when you have some type of contact and collaboration with those who are organizing, that you can have a peaceful First Amendment gathering. And that's what happened yesterday. Yes, did we have a couple of dust-ups? Sure. All right, but those things were quickly rectified. And I can't say enough about the organizers who had their marshals moving along, and when someone was getting out of control, they would step in and help calm that down. So just working in collaboration was very effective in getting that done. I'd like to just thank a few people before I go, because I promise you I'll keep this short today. Again, Executive Director Zay Tirado and the work that he's done putting this together. The fire department, great partners in this. There are a lot of things behind the scenes that they do that you don't see. I'd also like to thank the Secret Service just for the partnership, just working together. You know, Derek Meyer, I couldn't ask for anybody to communicate better with us. To get this type of work done. He was out there yesterday on the march, so he cleans up pretty good. I'd also like to thank Joe Heffernan, who is also from the Secret Service, who's been out there at the protests every single day. So just want to say thank you for that. With that being said, I also, and I have failed to do this, and I want to make sure that I specifically acknowledge the Public Safety Administration's Deputy Managing Director, Dan Casey, and his team for the work that they did setting up the technology infrastructure. This was needed this week, and great work done by Dan Casey, and I can't say enough about the work that he's done. I'd also like to thank our state, county, other federal partners, our mutual aid partners, also on standby, the National Guard. So I just want to say thank you. I know I'm sure I've missed people, but here you see from the mayor's office, the COO, John Robertson, and also Gary Gatewood is the Deputy Mayor of Public Safety. Just can't say enough about the partnership and the work that has been done in collaboration. Everybody in this city came together, stepped up, and made this happen, and it helped us keep our city safe. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Deputy Mayor Gary Gatewood.
Good morning, everyone. It's like a family reunion. We see each other every morning at the same time this week. So we're going to continue with the thank yous. Obviously, we want to thank Mayor Brandon Johnson, thank our COO, thank everybody who's put in a ton of work to make this happen. You know, the superintendent went through his team and OEMC. You know, I'll talk a bit about the work that's going in with CDOT, Streets and Sanitations, and our deputy mayors across the board. The level of collaboration that we have seen has been nothing short of phenomenal, from our partners on the ground, community-based organizations throughout city, county, and state government. You know, I would be remiss if I didn't thank my Assistant Deputy Mayor, Natasha Scott, for the work that she's done hand in hand with us, really driving this forward. We're excited about the final day. We know it's going to go successful. Obviously, we expect protests, but we're here for that. We've been prepared for that, like we've said from the very beginning. We'll continue to move this ball forward. We'll continue to have a great time, and we'll continue to be the most welcoming city in the country. Good luck, everybody, on the last of the DNC, and I'll give it back over to the superintendent so we can open up for questions today.
We'll be getting our questioning here. Superintendent Mayor Kawash, ABC7 Chicago. I know you mentioned this week it's time to forget about 68 as we reach the finish line of the DNC. How can you reflect on how much things have changed? You talk about that communication with the organizers, their own marshals, and just talk about the work your team has done this week to keep things calm for the most part.
So what has changed? Leadership, top down, not bottom up. When we look at the chiefs over here, the overall incident commander, Chief Dwayne DeVries, just the phenomenal work that he's done from beginning to end. You see our Chief of Patrol, John Hine, his constant communication with organizers. He's been dealing with these protests for forever. And he's developed a relationship. He's also developed a strategy around working with those groups. When we look at our Chief of Detectives, Antoinette City, just the planning around the coordinated multiple arrests information and just handling the arrests. Also, who has worked in lockstep with her, Chief Yolanda Talley from the Bureau of Internal Affairs, who have just done such a great job, the two of them working together to put this planning together to make sure that we're doing everything the best possible way that we can. And then Chief Angel Navales, who's been setting up the system around so that we can get our officers deployed properly. And then getting those officers information, making sure that our officers are well, making sure that they're getting water, food while they're out there so that they're able to stay calm, right? And we know we want to make sure that cognitively they're great. So just can't say enough about the entire team up here.
Good morning, Soup. Mac Lederman with Block Club Chicago. We saw around 3:30 p.m. yesterday in Park 578 a very small group of pro-Israel advocates in the park. I saw you out there giving officers a pep talk when it came around 5-ish o'clock. The pro-Palestinian group began to move past that gathering there at the park. There seemed to be greater restriction of access to the park at that time. When the two were passing each other, we saw many police blockading with bodies or with their bicycles. Can you explain the decision to restrict access to a park designated for First Amendment activity?
Because when you don't have a permit, we have to make sure that we keep order about what you do. So that park was permitted. This was an unpermitted protest.
Morning, Superintendent. Sam from the Tribune.
Good morning, Sam.
The week isn't over yet, but we're 3/4 of the way through. How much sleep have you gotten this week?
I don't know, if I add up all the hours, probably about none. So but it doesn't matter right now. We're at the end. I have that extra boost of energy just like everybody else here. And I'm not going to talk about my sleep because I guarantee you these people haven't slept much either. But we're doing the work that we need to do to make sure that we protect the city. So it's worth losing some sleep over.
Roseanne Tejas from Fox 32. It may be a little early for this question, but tomorrow everything's going to be wrapped up. How long and what is the plan for dismantling the security perimeter? How will that look?
I would like to say that we're going to go at it immediately, but we'll assess what's going on. And as soon as we have the green light, we'll start breaking things down, and we'll make sure that everyone can start getting back to their regular sleep schedules.
Superintendent, Nick Smith, News Nation. With tonight being the last night, has there been a strategy shift to deploy extra resources? And before the DNC, Mayor Johnson has said that there would not be any communities that have suffered from lack of police activity or the ability to respond to different neighborhoods. Have you seen a spike in other areas?
No, we actually have not. Now, are we seeing still some of the normal crime that we see on a daily basis? Yes. But what we did not do was deplete the neighborhoods of manpower. All right, we made sure that we had officers to respond to calls. They're also working extended hours with canceled days off, just to make sure that the city is protected all around.
And different strategy for tonight being the last night for the DNC?
No, the strategy is the same. We had a focus coming in, and the strategy is going to be the same. Obviously, as things change, we can change with those things, so we have that flexibility.
Good morning, sir. Tarso Veloso with Bloomberg.
How are you?
Good, and you?
Good.
Nice. I saw another vehicle saying that a delegate was robbed at gunpoint in a West Loop. Could you talk about that for us, please?
So that's something that we're still investigating. Obviously, there was something there, but we're still looking a little deeper into that to get more information on it.
Good morning. JC Navarrete with NBC Chicago. The response to the unpermitted protests outside the transportation center was swift, it was quick, it was quiet, and then all of a sudden, police officers converged there, prepared, and protected the scene. That was an unpermitted protest, and the response there was admirable. Any idea of another one that may be spurring up today, and just what steps do you guys take to, be one step ahead of these unpermitted acts?
We look at intel. We have, the Office of Emergency Management and Communication. We're constantly looking at things, just watching certain locations. And if they see things, popping up, we get that information, and we're ready and prepared to get to those locations as quickly as possible, as you stated. And our officers are trained, and they're ready to step in and do whatever is necessary to keep the situation calm.
Hi, Superintendent Dave Struett, Sun-Times. There's an ongoing sit-in happening within the DNC perimeter with some delegates. I'm curious what CPD's plan is to handle that.
That's on the inner perimeter, is being handled by the Secret Service. Derek, would you like to talk a little bit?
So our security perimeter is open 24/7. They are delegates that are inside our zone, and if they would be removed, it would be the DNC would decide that.
Derek, can you give your name and title?
Deputy Special Agent in Charge, Derek Meyer, U.S. Secret Service, Chicago Field Office.
Hey there, Emma Barnett with NBC News. Thank you for taking our questions. Two quick things. One, yesterday there seemed to be a scuffle that happened under the underpass where the train was. Can you just explain what happened there? And is there going to be a greater security presence there tonight when the marchers hit that area? And then my second question is, I'm wondering what you think this week has taught police forces across the country.
Well, here, I'll answer your first question. We had a couple of people from the protest group go up to the platforms. Now, we have officers who are working the CTA platforms up there, and when you have people who run up there, one individual had a huge flag, these officers, and then leaned over the fencing up there, and these officers are trying to figure out what's going on at this point, what that individual is doing. So they're immediately trying to stop someone from doing something, and this is all a part of an investigation, initial investigation. That being said, we were able to talk to the organizers. They had their marshals go in. We were able to bring that situation down, de-escalate it, and those people were released and were moved back into the march. So the marshals were very instrumental in helping us do that. Secondly, honestly, I don't know what this teaches other departments around the country because I don't want to speak for anyone else's department. But what I can say for the Chicago Police Department is what we've learned here is that preparation is everything. Two things you need for success: opportunity and preparation. We had the opportunity to respond to the Democratic National Convention, and we were prepared for it. And that preparation came through training, and our officers just worked with a level of pride that was just unbelievable.
Good morning, Leah Skeen with AP. I was wondering if you're able to confirm reports about protesters showing up outside of Vice President Harris's hotel last night, and what, if anything, happened there.
I don't have any information on that, but if it were something that were serious, obviously we would have that information. But they're protesters that show up everywhere, all over the city. So you're going to have that. We've seen them show up at some of the party locations. So, but it was uneventful.
Good morning, Superintendent.
Good morning.
Julie Bosman with the New York Times.
How are you, Julie?
Good. Some of the pro-Palestinian protesters have said this week that they felt intimidated by CPD, that there were so many officers on the streets, that they felt it was a deliberate effort to discourage them from protesting. I wonder if you could respond to that.
Yeah, well, listen, you know, people, personal feelings, you know, we're concerned about that, but not as concerned as we are about the safety of the city. You may have people who showed up to protest and they see all of the police because they believe that we're peaceful. I'm peaceful. I can believe that about myself, and that may be absolutely true, but that doesn't account for everyone else in that crowd who may do something to commit acts of violence or destruction of the city. So we understand how people feel at times, but we can't change our posture because we're worried about hurting individual feelings. What we want to do is get people to understand that we're out there for their safety. And I do believe that that was proven. Now, they may feel like it was intimidating because they saw so many officers, and that can be intimidating to anybody. But the way that the officers responded is proof that because they didn't stop anyone from protesting or exercising their First Amendment rights. So it's proof that our officers were out there for protection. But I believe as we continue this type of activity and move forward, people will have a better understanding of what we're there for.
Thank you, Superintendent. This is Molly with the Washington Post.
How are you, Molly?
Can you tell us how many total arrests of protesters there have been this week, and maybe talk a little bit about the crowd sizes, what we saw at the protests compared to what you had expected? And then also, you had talked about de-escalation and you offered that one example. I wondered if there were other examples we might not know about where that might not have made the news because police and protest marshals had de-escalated.
So that's a lot there, Molly, but so here, let me just talk about a few things. We'll get you the number of arrests. But when we look at the protests, there was a difference. So when you talk about crowd size, what you saw yesterday was completely different, and there was a completely different focus from what you saw that occurred on Tuesday. The individuals who showed up on Tuesday came here strictly to commit crimes, to fight with the police and cause destruction to the city. That wasn't the focus of the group yesterday. They just wanted to be heard. And we allowed that to happen. But where we saw the possibility of violence, and not only the possibility of violence, but where violence actually occurred, our officers responded to that, and they responded to violence based on the way they were trained, based on proportionality, based on the Constitution that we all uphold. And we did the exact same thing yesterday, except yesterday it was all First Amendment activity. Yes, there were a couple of scuffles in there, but having that relationship with the organizers from the beginning and having some level of agreement, the marshals did a great job of stepping in. And I just think that was just a recipe for success.
Hi, Megan Hickey, CBS Chicago. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Talking about that scuffle on the platform yesterday, can you talk a little bit about the role of the folks in the yellow safety vests and how they work alongside police to maybe diffuse those types of situations?
Yes, and so I don't like to necessarily say they work alongside police, but what they're doing is they are policing basically their own protest group. They're making sure that people stay in line. If we ask them, hey, listen, the group is getting out of control, we need to get them back in line, they'll run over and start talking to people to get them back in line. And that was very helpful to us because it reduces the risk of a confrontation between the police and protesters. So that was very helpful to us. So anytime I see a group out there who has marshals, we know for the most part, they're out there just to exercise their First Amendment rights.
Good morning, Superintendent.
Good morning.
Ed Haberly with NBC5 Chicago. Some of the early cost estimates we showed, or we have seen, estimated that there was potentially $25 million in overtime, $10 million in additional straight time, upwards of $75 million on public safety for the DNC. Is that an accurate total? And what would you say to people who would criticize that level of spending for policing the DNC?
Well, first off, you know, I don't handle the finances, so I'm going to leave that part of it alone. But what I will tell you is this. When it's necessary to protect the city, you have to make the investment. When we're looking at officers who are out there putting their lives on the line every day, those officers who are out there putting their safety at risk every day, leaving their families at home, the investment in keeping this city safe is absolutely necessary. So people can criticize what it takes, but nothing that you do that's worth anything is free. And we have to make sure that we invest in everything that we can to keep the city safe, to keep people safe. And so lastly, what I would say about that is when we're talking about lives, when we're talking about the safety of people, not just property, but just lives, saving lives, how do you put a price on that? That's the question I would ask those people.
Final question.
Good morning, Superintendent. Luke Barr with ABC News.
How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Good.
There were some reports that there were maggots put in some delegates' food at the Fairmont. Do you have an update in that investigation?
So what I can tell you is that local and federal, our federal partners, we're working on that together. There appeared to be, there's just a little information about the possibility of someone walking in and placing things. I won't get too much into it. And later this was discovered. Now I'm not sure that those were maggots. There was sawdust, so they were probably mealworms. They look the same, but that's still under investigation. It appeared that there was one person who got sick as a result of it. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.